Welcome to Mimi Behind the Mic, where healing happens one story at a time. I'm Beth, your host, Mimi to my precious grandchildren. Let's talk about bullying, boundaries, and beliefs, share our experience, strength, and hope, and most importantly, embrace solutions together. Buckle up. The adventure starts now, behind the mic. Good morning. Mimi Behind the Mic here. Thanks for being here. Today I'm joined with a lovely guest, Victoria, who is going to share her experience, strength, and hope with bullying, boundaries, and beliefs. First, Victoria, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so my name is Victoria. I am a single mother to a little girl. I'm 26 and I'm currently going to school to get my LCDC, which is my licensed chemical dependency counselor. And I live in a small town, so it's my life right now.
Very nice. Sounds like a very exciting, power-packed life at your young age. So I'm excited to have you here today, and I'm real excited to hear about your experience with bullying, boundaries, and beliefs. So take
For
it away.
sure. So I would say bullying really started, for all of us, it starts when we're younger. And I think that kind of led me to where I am now. I would say that when I was about 13 was when I was actively aware that I was getting bullied. We had foster kids that we fostered, and I felt like I was fighting for my own place in my own home within my own family that I was already a part of. And these people had come in that was supposed to help, and we were supposed to help them. And I was getting shoved out of my family by them. So
Wow.
that's really the first time I experienced bullying, and it was within my own family by my best friend at the time, which that's another story. But I think a lot of people get in the mindset that bullying is for younger people, like it stops after high school, and I truly don't believe that. I've been bullied
I'm
in
with you.
college, so
Yeah.
it doesn't discriminate for sure. And I think dealing with that at a younger age and experiencing that all throughout high school kind of led me to where I was more vulnerable as a younger adult. And then I got into more different situations than I normally would have based off of my personal experiences back then.
Wow, that's a lot. And I hear you. And I totally agree with and can share my experience at a later date about bullying as an adult.
Yeah.
And I'm up there. I have 6 decades behind me.
Yeah.
So I feel like right now I've lived, like I have more life behind me than ahead of me. And I too have dealt with bullying every step of the way. But today, this is the platform I chose. And the tough topic to talk about today, and the pillars for Mimi
Yes.
Behind the Mic, because of the damage and the damage I see in my grandchildren's world. So
For
now
sure.
it's like, boom, 5 generations, and the same stuff is still going on. But do you feel like today it's a lot more powerful? It's a lot more tolerated? It's a lot more potent?
I would say yes. I feel like the older you get, the more you are aware of it. But even with recently in the news lines, there's been those peaceful protests. Those weren't even peaceful. I think our world is so much watered down to the word bullying and the term bullying that it's become acceptable at any level and at any cost. So
Yeah, I agree. It's become kind of a buzzword, right? That people just don't even pay attention to anymore.
yeah.
And I really appreciate you being here as a different generation than I to share your experience and your thoughts. And what would you say to a middle schooler that is in the midst of being bullied or experiencing bullying with a friend or even a stranger? What would you suggest, or do you have any suggestions for them on how to deal with it?
I think something I wish I would have done different is depending, obviously, if it's a stranger, it's the one time. If it's not someone within my school, it's the one time I'm going to encounter that. Say it's at the store and you run into a stranger and they're just being rude to you and they're bullying you. Well, what's the likelihood that you're going to run into that stranger again? So in that scenario, I wouldn't worry about that as much. But with a friend, I had a best friend in high school and we had a rocky high school year together. And I wish I would have been able to realize that earlier on that friendship wasn't beneficial to me and it wasn't doing anything to push me the direction I wanted to go. It was just holding me back. And I think as middle schoolers and high schoolers, we're taught to have friends, be social, do all these outings, and, be in the crowd. Sometimes that takes time to build that friendship with someone. And so I would recommend really, analyzing your friendships. I wish I would have done it at a younger age. And I think having like 2 friends versus 5 friends is so much more important because it's a tighter circle and then everybody and there's not as much bullying. And then if there is, you have that relationship where you can be like, hey, like, I don't appreciate that you did that. And I think that our world pushes so much of the social interaction to the point where people get social anxiety and it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to have that many friends, personally.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I had that experience. I never wanted to be a part of the big crowd because of my anxiety, because of my issues as a younger person. But that has kind of stayed with me through the growing pains of different experiences through life. And today, just from observing, I mean, I have observed and experienced that mean girls grow into mean women. Like
For
you
sure.
said, bullying does not discriminate.
Mm-mm.
Addiction does not discriminate.
Yeah.
Not many things in life discriminates. It comes down to our choices. But young people today don't have what you just talked about that you wish you had.
Yeah, for sure.
So they're kind of on their own. And how do you feel social media ties into social anxiety?
I would say it's a huge factor. I mean, I have a lot of like friends that I've talked to on social media that I count as friends, but I don't really know them. I've never met them. I've never seen them. There is one person that I talk to, and every now and then he has to take a break from social media. And it's like, hey, like my life outside of this is super stressed, so I'm going to step back. And I think that the younger people don't know how to do that. Like, they're just so in their phone that they don't know how to step back and say, okay, this is too much. I already have enough going on in my life around me, and I need to back up. And I think that takes a lot of self-reflection on whether or not this is really healthy for me. And so I really appreciate people that are like that. And I try to be like that, at times. Because, like, when he's like, oh, I'm going to take a break from social media, I was like, oh, maybe I should too. Because my life is stressful. It makes me start to look in my life. Be like, my life is stressful too. Like, this is not helping. Sitting at your phone all day doesn't allow you to see what's going on around you. And I think we miss a lot of social interaction around us being on our phone.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a different world with the internet. And I remember when it all began, it's scary. And even now, the latest new AI, I was like, oh my gosh, I want no part of that. And when God brought this opportunity to learn how to podcast, it was like, oh yeah, you have to learn because that's where the world is going. My grandchildren have to learn this.
Yeah. For sure.
Not necessarily have to, but I believe they have to because the world is just going that way very quickly.
Yes.
I read something this morning that kind of caught my eye. I've always said, and I've always believed, to trust my gut, also meaning trust my instincts, also meaning trust my God-given motherly instincts. But I read this morning and listened to a podcast of a lady I follow that's pretty out there because she's got tremendous tech support and she's got a tremendous message. And she said, the word today is vibe. If you feel an uncomfortable vibe, get away from it. If you feel an uncomfortable vibe in your gut, trust it. Gut instincts, in my opinion and my belief, are from God, and we have them for a reason. So to talk to the young people who don't have a positive friend, who are hoping for a positive friend. I mean, this is a prayer that I pray constantly for my grandchildren, that God would just send them one person that believes in him, that trusts in him, because that's the greatest input I have found in my life. And I introduced myself to God in 1992 when I was a mother of a 2-year-old. So what do you think about, and what would you say to the young people who don't have that friend? How do
I
they
would
find what you talked
mm,
about?
say what's actually ironic because I am in that season of life where I don't have an actual friend. Me and my friend from high school quit being friends, and my childhood best friend lives in Austin. So there's kind of a distance there, even. I am learning as of right now how to get comfortable with being lonely. And not in the sense of like sad lonely, but like okay with being by myself, not needing anyone, because I truly believe in God's timing of finding friends or relationships or any type of contact with other people in general. And I feel like if you can't do a season by yourself and work on yourself and learn really who you are and how to love yourself, then you can't be friends with anyone. It's really hard because you're not going to be able to put yourself all the way out there. And God's timing will line up perfectly, honestly. And I feel like taking a step back and looking into yourself and really embracing God has decided for me to have a season of loneliness, which is fine. And He will do that. It's fine. It's not a bad thing. God is actually teaching me patience in my season of loneliness because I am so into that friendship, 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 or guys, I want somebody. I have that personality where I need somebody. So my first thing is to encourage to embrace a season of loneliness if you have been put into that, and to really like reflect on yourself and do stuff for yourself. I'm talking about going to like dinner myself and stuff. Like I am trying to work on really living on my own, being my own person without somebody else. And once you figure that out and you're at the right place, then I truly believe that the right person will come along, because you will have a personality that is so attractive to people that they are drawn to you and they want to really hang out with you. That's what I'm doing, and that's what I would encourage to do, is embrace the lonely, because I think it's important.
That is fantastic, girl. And I'm so proud of you to be vulnerable and transparent
Mm-hmm.
and to share this message, because
Yeah.
I wish I believed that when I was your
Mm-hmm.
age.
Yeah.
It took me 58 years of life and a lot of different life, but
Mm-hmm.
God never left me. I left
Yeah.
him. I left him in my rearview mirror as
Mm-hmm.
I plowed ahead, you know?
Yeah.
But today I know and I embrace that he is my beeline to anything good, to
Mm-hmm.
everything good.
For sure.
And this is what I share with my grandchildren. No matter where I am, God is always there.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where I am or who I'm surrounded by, I have my gut instinct. I
Yeah.
have that intuition, that vibe.
Mm-hmm.
We have everything we need
Mm-hmm.
to make healthy, good decisions if we choose to want to live that
Mm-hmm.
way.
Yes.
Today, I choose to live in God's will versus Beth's will.
Mm-hmm.
And some days that takes more work than others.
Mm-hmm. That's for
But
sure.
bravo to you, girl, for being out here, because this world needs your voice. This
Mm-hmm.
world needs a lot more of your voices.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I am really, really thrilled to have you here sharing.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
First, what is your experience, if any, with bullying morphing into boundaries?
Well, I think like I was bullied in high school. I say bullied, but I wasn't really bullied in the sense of like, I guess, a negative term. I was more like, I was not popular in high school, but apparently, according to all the guys in high school, I was very attractive. So I was more like bullied in that direction of like very like flirtatious bullying. I consider it bullying now, and it took me years to even consider that bullying or any form of like abuse or anything, because I was not aware at that age, obviously. And I think that really like lowered my boundaries of like where it stops. Where do I believe and where does this stop? To the point where I actually got into a really horrible relationship right outside of high school. I believe I was 19, 18 at the time, maybe 18, 19, that I had allowed myself, because my boundaries were so low because of all of the stuff in high school. I just expected that every guy was like that. And so I got in this relationship where it was a completely different world than what I was used to when I was little. Because I was always like not fully sheltered, but I wasn't fully aware of like the whole other like life that there was out there. Like, I mean, we didn't celebrate Halloween or any of that. So when I got into that relationship with a person that like just had completely different life, I mean, was partying at 16 in his mom's house with his mom gone. Like, it just catapulted me. I had no boundaries to that point where I fully jumped full into that lifestyle, and I did not stop till I had someone else involved. So,
Were you aware of the concept of boundaries or not a consideration at all?
I think now I am, but I think back then I was not. I was just young and in love and living a life that I've been kept from, and so I was just going with the flow, literally.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
So,
I hear you, and I hear that a lot, and
mhm,
that's why it's tremendous in my opinion for you to be here sharing this
mhm.
journey
Yeah, for
because
sure.
there are so many young people who were in that boat that you were in
Mhm,
at 18, 19 years
mhm,
old that may be in it right now
mhm,
that don't have the tools that you have acquired on this journey.
mhm, mhm.
So, can you tell us about that? The tools that you've acquired on this journey?
I think it definitely took some time. It took, 6 years of back and forth. And then basically, I had an awakening at about 6 years after when someone very important came into my life and they couldn't defend themselves. And so that got me out of that. But it doesn't mean that there's still not that pull. There is that pull because what it is it's a soul tie. So it doesn't matter how far I go this way or how far he goes that way, it's always a soul tie. Whether there's something physically there or not, it's still going to be drawn together. And I think for that situation, I really had to kind of like evaluate how he was and really like put myself in the mindset of, okay, he's willing to go this far to do whatever it takes to get his way, that kind of pulled me out of that one. But I will say the guy I met after him was a completely different person, and I still struggle with that one. And so I do find myself reviewing that videos that I've made and everything that I've made about, pulling away from a person I was addicted to. And it's still a very like strong connection because it was so different and it was so, it wasn't toxic. I was so used to toxic. So when it was like sweet and like sugar coated toxic, it was like, I was like, oh my God, this is like, there are nice guys out here, and then toxic. But it's like, I really still working on that. And so one of the things that I've been doing is I've really been kind of like self-evaluating, because if I don't have boundaries, I'm going to always go back to that. And so that's why when I made that video, a video about my drug of choice being a person, every time I think about that dude, I watch it or I read it because I need that reminder that, okay, this is what it was, but this is not what it actually was supposed to be. So I constantly have to remind myself every day, this is not what you need. This is not what you need. And it's going to be like that until it gets to a point where you don't even like look back. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, that I saw that video. That's how we actually met.
Mm-hmm.
Drug of choice being a person.
It's
And
cute.
dude, it's tremendous. It's so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And before you leave me today, we'll give the people the places where to find you because I
Yes,
know
for
we're not
sure.
the only people experiencing that.
Mm-hmm.
How soul ties and addiction are
Mm-hmm.
like this, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And all the things that you're learning right now, I'm just learning in the last 4.5 years of my life.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's incredible. It's incredibly
Mm-hmm.
powerful. And I have a dear friend who still lives in Brooklyn who works in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And she I'm going to have her on here because her ministry has morphed into the scientific fact how the
Mm-hmm.
brains work
Yeah.
with all of this. And I'm so grateful and that God is shining a light on all of this stuff.
Yes,
You
for
know, for
sure.
me, through COVID, that's where I finally surrendered to God because
Mm-hmm.
I started drinking and I drank every day for 2 years and
Yeah,
almost killed
for
myself.
sure.
So that's a story for another day.
Mm-hmm.
But I mention that to say I found recovery
Mm-hmm.
online at that time because people had nowhere to go. And
Yeah, for
I
sure.
grew up around alcoholism and around addiction,
Mm-hmm.
but not immersed the way
Mm-hmm.
I found myself.
Yes.
So
So
for
that,
God to
yeah.
be shining a light on all
Mm-hmm.
of this
Yeah.
and to, not only for the people who believe in him, but
Mm-hmm.
also mainly for the people who don't,
Yeah,
because he's
for
so
sure.
much bigger and he's in control of it all.
Mm-hmm.
no matter
For sure.
how hard we fight, right?
That's for sure, for sure.
So the soul ties and the addiction, it's a huge topic.
They
I
are.
would love to dive a little deeper. Maybe you can come back for a round two.
Yeah, I mean, I've got plenty of stories.
I would love it. I would love it
Plenty of
because I would
stories.
like to move on to beliefs.
Okay.
Tell me about your beliefs and how they played a part in your story from 18 to now.
So I think, when I was younger, obviously, I grew up in the church. I was raised Christian, did all of that. And then I would say there was a point in my life, especially around 18, and when I was with that guy in those 6 years, that I had pulled away from like everybody. And normally I was such a, church every Sunday, family person, and I just like got pulled. Because the minute I got old enough and my parents like were like, okay, we can't convince you to stay here, I moved in and I lived with them and I stayed with him like every other night that I could. And that really like took away that like belief in God and the belief in family, and that was a system. I was really isolated even from his family, which that didn't really matter. They didn't really like me. Yeah, it took a while. I mean, up until about, I would say, 2023, it took a while to finally get back to where I feel like I could be around a family, because I had another situation in 2023 that started me into 2024, and I went to 2024 on a roller coaster of a bunch of stuff. I had a miscarriage in 2024, so I was dealing with that and toxic guy that was the father at that time. Well, and so I was dealing with that. And it wasn't until last, I would say November, that I finally got back in path and was like, I got into school, I did my first semester, and that's really when I started to discover that I liked this field and that I could be my own person and still have boundaries, but I could also respect other people's boundaries and still be my own person. Like, say someone puts a boundary on me, and back then, my old self wouldn't have respected that. I wouldn't have been like, oh, because I didn't believe in boundaries. I was like, I had no boundaries at that point. But now I find myself like, okay, I can respect your boundaries, but I can also be my own person. So I don't have to agree with your boundaries, but that doesn't mean that I don't respect them. It just means that I have to be my own person. And so that took a lot. It took a lot to believe in myself. That's a huge one. I always feel like if you don't believe in yourself, you can't believe in anything else. And it's the belief in God and then belief in myself that I really am working on right now, because like I said, God is teaching me patience, and that's in my relationships, honestly, because I want to jump from next relationship to next relationship to next relationship. And the person that I currently kind of have a thing for, it's not ready, And so that's like really slow, really not ready. So being in a season of wanting someone but not having someone is really huge for me. So I'm working on like my belief in God and that he's got the overall picture that I don't have. So that's really where it's at for me.
Oh my gosh. Living in the fire is a tough thing.
Mm-hmm. For
Being
sure.
still, one of the first scriptures I learned years and years ago, be still and know that I am God.
Mm-hmm.
But how he gently reminds me, Beth,
Mm-hmm.
you're not God. You're
Mm-hmm.
not your God. You're not her God. You're not his,
Mm-hmm.
and none of this is easy. You've had
Mm-mm.
incredible experiences
Mm-hmm.
in your life so far. Do you believe that God allows us to walk paths without him? Why do you believe God allows us to walk paths without
I
him?
feel like it wouldn't be as much like, obviously we're not all completely without God. Some of us don't think, even though non-believers, he's still there. It's just not as easy to see. And I think that God allows us to experience life on our terms in a way to, show that he has better. Because up until that point, when I was with the guy after the first guy that I've been on and off with since basically I met him like 4 years ago, I think. A couple months ago, he came back, and the other guy that I had really liked had left for his like, break or whatever on social media. But what's ironic is they're two separate people that came back at the same time. Without them knowing, but you have this person that's like love bombing and toxic, but in all the right areas, perfect at the right times, at the right moments, in the right areas. And then you have this other person that's just like a genuine person, like honest about what he wanted up front and like just completely different. They came back at the same time. And I was actually talking to my mom about this because every time they come back, it's at the same time. And I feel like it's an example from God because God's allowed me to live in this season with this guy by myself. And then he leaves. That guy leaves, and it leaves me devastated. And then they come back at the same time. And it's an example. I truly believe that God is like, whether it's this person or not, it's someone like this other person that is all like into God, that is all like everything that is right for me and what I deserve. It's this person. And so I feel like God always sends them back at the same time to say, hey, this is what Satan wants for you, but this is what I have for you. And I feel like that's where God has allowed me to live in that season of, okay, you can be your own person, you can do that. But then he sends this subtle reminder of, hey, I still have this for you. Even though you're in this season of by yourself, I'm still here. I have this person for you. So it's been really interesting. And like I had said, that person already took a social media break again, which it happens because I get it. I want to take a social media break. But I'm really feeling like in this season, I'm not communicating with this person. I'm going to work on myself and embrace. And I think that's where God teaches me patience. And I do think God allows us to step back from him a little bit so that we can really have like eyes on the whole view of what's going on around us.
Yes, and I love your clarity. Again, I'm just learning clarity.
Mm-hmm.
In this season of life, I've had many seasons of life. I remember
Mm-hmm.
studying about Esther. That's how I learned about seasons for such
Mm-hmm.
a time as this. Life is so fluid. Life never
Mm-hmm.
stops, no matter what I choose,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what emotional tornado I choose to jump into. Both of your spaces that you just described, are they both safe spaces to you?
I would say when I get into my own space and I kind of like not completely pull away, but I'm kind of more in like my own is when I find myself going back to the old habits. Honestly, I feel like there needs to, even though he may not be directly like talking to me or whatever, be like, obviously I go to church and I try to do all that. I feel like it's in the seasons that I'm in the spaces that I'm not as much involved because I get in the point where like, oh, life's too busy. I have to do this. I can't go to church. I can't read my Bible. I can't do this. But I obviously know he's still there and I just don't build my relationship with him is when I find myself going back to all of those. So I feel like being secure in that space is something I need to work on and still be like, hey, I'm going to church. I'm doing this. I know you're up here over here with me. I know I'm in this season where I'm doing it myself, but I'm still pursuing you. And that's really hard because I want to like either be all in or be half in. And it's just not how it works. When I'm half in is when everything goes south. And so really figuring out how to be full in, even though he's silent, it's been a journey for sure. I'm still working on that. So
Yeah, and for me, I'm so grateful that I get to practice today. Not everything has to be cut and dry. I lived 58 years being a perfectionist, and I could be whoever I needed to be in the moment outside, while the inside was just dying, right?
Right.
I love that God allows us to walk these paths. And I find that when I am in a place that you're describing you're in right now, which I'm also in to a degree, that I remember that when I acknowledge and admit that I want to stay in this fire, because I know Jesus is in this fire with me, I'm good.
For
I
sure.
forget it very quickly when emotions are involved. For me, emotions blur it all, but they're also a gift from God, right? So to remember, and God sends me gentle reminders through people, through listening to podcasts online, through what I choose to do with my time, through my morning meetings. But I believe I'm more comfortable today than I've ever been in my life staying in the fire because I have 58 years of being angry and resentful and blaming everybody else for what's wrong with me. I don't want to be here anymore. And today I know that. So in this recovery that I'm practicing for the past 4.5 years, because I believe the whole world needs to recover from life, one degree or another.
For sure.
And God allows us to. But I believe today that when I stay in the fire, believing Jesus is with me, I don't question what my next step is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And every time I do that, God magnifies my faith
Mhm.
because I'm taking a step of faith.
Yeah.
Because I choose clearly, I have clarity of mind that I've never had in my life.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
choose clearly to acknowledge where I
Mhm.
was, what it looks like, but also that I don't want to be there anymore. And I don't have to be.
Mhm.
That
Yeah,
even
sure.
though the toxic place is safe because it's familiar, I don't want to be her anymore. And I
Yeah,
don't
for
have to
sure.
be. And my recovery is one day at a time. And that's
Mhm.
all God asks me for.
That is true.
I share all the time when I say thank you, God, before my feet hit the floor in the morning. It makes for a good day because I'm
Mhm.
inviting him into my day.
Mhm. For sure.
So I love that we're talking. I
Mhm.
love that our worlds have come
Mhm.
together because
Yes.
to have the same experiences with so many decades between us says a lot.
Yeah, it is.
It really does. And the world needs to hear it.
Mhm.
So I appreciate your time. I definitely want you to come back because I feel like I
Yeah.
could talk to you for 12 more hours. But I would like to end this session asking you, where do you see yourself in the next year?
Really see myself fully, I would say fully in my career. I mean, I start my internship in August, so I'll be fully in my career by the end of this year, hopefully. And then I just want to be in a place where I am comfortable with me and the friendships that I have, and not necessarily pursuing a relationship. I see myself pursuing friendships with healthy people, whether that's a guy or whether that's a girl or whatever. I just see myself pursuing healthy friendships and really doing some self diving into myself, because I will say, the biggest thing I've learned about going through this career that I'm going through and the program that I'm going through is everything is therapy. Like, everything can be seen as therapy and it can be used in a therapeutic way. And so I really see myself like constantly, daily, just diving into who I am and who I'm going to be and who I want to be. And I just want to be myself and be in my season of loneliness for a little while. And then if someone comes along, it comes along, but I'm not going to rush it because I have boundaries and I know how to not rush things now. So,
I am so proud of you. And I just met you. I am so proud of you. And that is such a tremendous message.
yes.
And I know God is going to honor your
hmm
faithfulness.
hmm
Remind us again what your career is. What are you going to school for?
I'm going to be a LCDC, which is a licensed chemical dependency counselor. So I'm going to work in a rehab or an outpatient setting with people who are addicted.
Okay. And what are your highest hopes to achieve in your first season of that?
Ultimately, one of the things, so I posted a video about that recent Fenty Fold trend because it pissed me off. It really upset me and hurt my heart. And I had someone comment on it, "Can you save my daughter?" And at that moment, I was like, oh my God, how do I respond to that? And the ultimate thing is, I can't. So, really, in this season, I just want to plant seeds and hope and pray that they water that and that they recover and come out. So, I'm going to be a planter for this season of that.
Amen. That is fantastic because I find myself in the same position because addiction is just running rampant since COVID.
Mhm.
I'm sure it
Mhm.
always was, but it doesn't have
Mhm.
my attention like it does today.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
And it's all over the place. And how easy it is, the easy access brings tremendous fear for my
Mhm.
grandchildren and
True.
young people, right?
True.
And fear for
And
me
yeah.
paralyzes me. But
Yeah.
through my journey in this season of recovery, learning, like I'm
Mhm.
trusting while I'm
Mhm.
learning while I'm growing,
Mhm.
growing while I'm healing. And that's
True.
my mantra.
Yeah, it's
It's a
great.
wonderful thing to be able to just stay in today
Mhm.
because it's a lot. What you
Mhm.
described as your highest hopes is a lot, but
Mhm.
you're doing the work to get there.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that girl, I thank you so much. And the world is going to keep thanking you. Keep believing in yourself, honey, and keep your eyes on the prize because I know God has big things for you.
Yes, he does.
Tell our viewers where they can find you.
Okay, so I am on Instagram and TikTok. They are both Hey It's Vic with a Z and an
Okay.
underscore at the end. So that is both of that. And then I think I have a LinkedIn profile that is in one of those bios. So
Okay. Thank you so much. And again, I am Mimi behind the mic. You can find me on Mimi Behind the Mic on Facebook, MBTM 2025 on Instagram. I'm still learning TikTok, not on there yet, but my website is mimibehindthemic.org. And these podcasts will be launched on YouTube first and Spotify. So thank you so much again for being here. And I look forward to talking to you some more.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, honey. Have a great day.
Bye, you too.